you know how to move energy. And when it starts to move and your body does what it does, the nervous system is processing a greater frequency. And we saw in our brain scans that when people relax into it, the brain goes into a very, very high state, a lot of microvolts of energy, and many times the brain waves that are carrying that energy are delta.
We have a tremendous amount of energy that exists in our first center. Think about this. There's enough energy in the first center of a human being or many mammals to create life. Most people have been programmed into believing that energy can go in one direction, that we release that energy out. But now let's take a journey up the spine all the way to the brain. When energy is activated in the first center, that's creative energy. And when that energy can move into the second center, if we feel safe in our environment, and there's food, and there's shelter, and there's protection, and there's family, and we have networks, energy naturally moves into the second center. And this center is about consumption, elimination, metabolism, breaking down food, homeostasis, and balance. Now, when the environment becomes unsafe, and we perceive a threat or a danger or some challenging situation, energy moves into the third center. And now we need our will, and we need some power, become empowered to overcome the conditions in our environment. If we're successful in overcoming those conditions, energy naturally moves into the fourth center, and we love our life a little bit more. We love ourselves a little bit more. We feel more whole. We feel more complete. We feel more present. And of course, we have to then express our greatest understanding. We have to express our greatest expression of love or truth, and energy moves into this center. If we can articulate and explain that greatest understanding, energy will move into the sixth center, and latent systems of the brain will begin to become activated, and we will begin to broaden our spectrum of reality. In other words, we'll begin to see more the way the reality really is. Some veil or some conditioning will be released. And if energy makes it to the sixth center, it'll move into the seventh center, and it will begin to create harmony and balance in all of these individual centers. And then there's another center right above the head. The Egyptians called it the Ka, and we'll call that the eighth center. And when energy moves all the way up to the top of the brain, if we feel worthy enough to receive, now all of a sudden now we open this eighth center, and opening that eighth center allows the door for us to begin to download information from the field or from the cosmos. So it makes sense then that when people have traumatic events in their life, think about early childhood abuse or trauma or shock, it makes sense how energy can get stuck in each one of these energy centers, and it never actually continues on in making its way back to the brain. As you've learned in the last episode, we have what's called a convergent focus. That's when we focus on matter, something material. And we have what's called a divergent focus, or a broad focus, or an open focus. And that's when we put our attention or our awareness on energy or nothing but frequency. Most people spend the majority of their time narrowing their focus on matter. But according to the quantum model of reality, reality is both particle and wave, matter and energy. And so in the introduction, in many of the meditations in the work we do, I train people to do meditations, what we call a body parts meditation. And I ask people to rest their attention on different parts of their body and then become aware of the space around their body. And it was tedious in the beginning because I asked them to rest their attention on their nose and then become aware of the space that their nose is in space, and then their eyeballs or the space between their ears, and then the space around their head. And all of that training was preparation for this meditation called the Blessing of the Energy Centers meditation. And it was a practice to begin to master a convergent and a divergent focus. By the same means, when you become aware of the space around your body, the act of doing that begins to slow your brain waves down from beta brainwave patterns into alpha and theta brainwave patterns. Now, what's the relevance behind that? Well, if you're in beta brainwave patterns, you're separate from the operating system where you can begin to make measurable changes. In other words, when you're in beta brainwave patterns, you're in your conscious thinking neocortex and you're separate from the autonomic nervous system. So as you begin to open your awareness and relax, you begin to slow your brain waves down, and that is training for this meditation.
You won't see 200 standard deviations outside of normal in many neuroscience studies because it's just so outside of the normal. But we've measured it over and over again. In fact, we can predict when it's going to happen. We were just looking at this person's beautiful, really organized theta. Well, when we see that, we know that theta is going to carry gamma. We just know it. And we just know that that person's so coherent, so orderly, that they're harmonics. They're frequencies that build on other frequencies. And that's exactly how the energy centers work. They're frequencies that build on frequencies. So as you're blessing your energy centers and resting your attention in different one of those spaces in the space around, not only are you creating coherence in here, but in addition to that, as you connect them, your act of becoming conscious and connecting and aligning and attuning and feeling it move is creating the very neurological networks to invite the experience to happen automatically, naturally. And as you begin to open this pathway, energy will begin to shift. And the blockage of energy you will feel as a sensation in your body. And you'll feel it as like a pit in your gut or a heavy heart. That's the body out of balance, and it's a feeling. And many people were talking about this at dinner last night. The team leaders were saying, well, some of my people, they don't even know what the emotion is. They can't name what they want to move out of their body. They don't know the emotion. And I said, well, forget the emotion. What is the feeling they feel when they feel it? Do they have a pit in their gut? Do they have a heavy heart? Do they have soreness or heat or whatever it is? Just come up with a sensation. And when you have a bunch of sensations in your body, like you're feeling like irritated and hot, and you feel your heart racing, the accumulation of those sensations or feelings is called an emotion. Now you name it as anger or frustration. So we give names to emotions, but they're really just physiological sensations of the body, many times being out of balance. So all of this incoherence, when it starts getting orderly, starts getting more coherent, begins to allow energy to build on the previous center, and build on the previous center, and build on the previous center. And when those centers are aligned and attuned, you have a very coherent, healthy body. And people who have done this work in blessing the energy centers, they're in this room. They've healed themselves of all kinds of crazy health conditions that the doctors had no solution for. People who have chronic bladder infections or prostate conditions or any condition in any one of these lower centers, ovarian tumors. The energy starts to move, or there's balance in these centers, doing the breath and beginning to disturb that energy. As that energy begins to unwind, it just becomes pure energy that wants to go back from whence it came, to the brain as a thought. And so fear that's stored in the body can turn into freedom in 1 second. It's the movement of energy, and you will feel it. And many times when you do this properly, people pass out. It's happened to me thousands of times. And they come up to the stage and they say, I passed out. And I say, I've been telling you that it could happen to you. You're doing it right. What? Yeah, that's a lot of energy. I see a flash of light and then I don't remember. That's energy moving into your brain. In the beginning, it scares people because they don't know what they're losing control. But that's a good squirt of energy making it into your brain. Now, then the body will adapt because it'll be able to process a greater frequency. But when it first happens, it scares a lot of people because it's just raw energy moving back. So, gamma happens when there's an enormous amount of energy or release into the brain. Gamma happens at times, even when you open your heart, you'll see spurts of gamma. When I say certain words, when we are doing a meditation, I can say a certain word and the brain scientists can tell you we could have 14 people having their brain scanned and they all go into gamma at the same time. All of them. because they're associating those words. And that's exactly what I want to have happen. So as a facilitator, so we study that. We study the best way to communicate. But building the model with gamma and different frequencies, it's better for you to look at a light spectrum. You know, the whole spectrum of light from the slowest radio waves all the way up to gamma waves and cosmic waves, and turn it this way, and it would be closer to the frequencies that the body processes in those centers.